Here is my GameCube, my personal GameCube. It's not my original GameCube that I had as a child because I had the 101 model. This is the original revision that I decided to paint a long time ago. It used to be better. I don't even know what happened here, but this is originally an Indigo GameCube. This was before it was like easy to find the replacement shells that are out there. There's still no like white shells that I know of out there. Sometimes you got to slam this shut is the open close button sticks. As you probably saw, I have a rewritable disk in there because that is running Swiss and this uses not Pico Boot because I modded this well before Pico Boot came out. I modded this with this mod. I just can't remember what it's called right now. And I actually didn't install it very well, but it works. So, and then this is a 3D printed power button because I was having issues like I do with the open close button. And then I ended up like melting the button trying to fix it. It's a long story. So I ended up 3D printing a new button when I made the 3D printed video instead of using the janky one I have. But today we are going to be installing, oh my gosh, you can even see all of the red coming off of the HDMI adapter that I have that I constantly plug back in because I use it to test GameCubes a lot of the time. Anyways, we're going to be replacing the proprietary power plug on the GameCube with a USB-C mod, as you probably know from the title. So we'll just get into it. I have a Game Boy Player on here, so I'm going to take my LTT screwdriver and I'm gonna unscrew the flatheads. There's only two of them on here, so it's pretty simple. Ooh, that didn't sound good. Did I not get the screw out all the way? I don't know. But then that opens us up to be able to unscrew the 4 game bit screws that are in here. And I'm going to use my automatic screwdriver for this because it's just got the bit preloaded. And then we can, oh, well, I was going to flip it over first. And then I have quite the rat's nest of wires in here. Man, up close, this GameCube is very ugly, but far away, it looks great. I really like the Stormtrooper look that I've got going for it. But I do have LEDs poking through the controller ports. Yeah, I'm not going to mess with that. I actually was going to replace this board, but I just remembered that the ports light up, so I don't want to replace that board. I do need to replace this, though. But that's not what we're here for today. We are here to take this back panel off, and all we really need to do is unplug these two, take a Phillips 1 bit and unscrew that, and we can just remove that. We don't even have to take all these million screws apart. We don't even have to just take this off. We just need to take this little board off with that one screw and put the rest of this off to the side. And we will want to keep that one screw, but the only thing we need to remove from this board is this button here. Now, I should probably say this, even though we're like 5 episodes deep at this point, something like that. This is a Giltessa USB-C mod. As you can see over here, I've got the guide pulled up, but you can find that guide by going to the listing on Giltessa's shop, and you just scroll all the way down to click on that, download the PDF, and boom, here you are. Written guide if you want to follow along with that. If not, you can just keep watching this video and watch how I do it. So I'll go ahead and open this bag up. The reason why we need to only take the button off is because we actually have 3 connectors that we're going to be able to solder in here. And the USB-C port is already pre-soldered, which is awesome. So he gives us these 3 pin connectors because while there are only 2 on this board here, and I'll zoom in for this, there's only 2 here because you only have the positive and negative for the power and the fan over here. But if you're familiar with the Noctua fans, a lot of people like to replace the fans in the GameCube with the Noctua fans, and those have a different connector. And that is what this is for. I believe, at least, this is for the fan mods. If you need to replace your fan, you can get a different fan and use this connector. So we have 3 connectors that we can solder in here. So if my original fan ever goes out, well, I can just plug it straight into this board, no problem. So I think first things first, we'll put all this off to the side and we will desolder these 4 pins here so we can remove the button and reinstall it in the new board. We also have the 3D printed guide for the USB-C that we'll get out there because it's apparently sequestered to the bottom of the bag and not accessible without ripping it. Since this is only 4 little pins on this board, I'm just going to desolder it by hand because I don't really want to melt all the plastic or at least take that risk with some hot air. So I'm going to put this down kind of in an awkward position like this, and I'm going to add some flux to all 4 of these pins. And I'm even going to add a bit of fresh lead solder just to make it flow a little bit easier here. I'm going to take my solder wick and just try and remove all of the solder here. It is going to be a little tough because of the angle that I have to work with here, but it looks like it's working. I'm going to swap over to the other side here. Whoa. Hello. And I did remove a lot of solder, but still not enough. But either way, I'm going to press on this and I'm going to try and push the tab in a little bit because it is like pressed up pretty far against the edge on both sides, which makes it easier for even a little bit of solder to stay connected to it and prevent it from being removed. So just doing that same thing again here. That bent a little too far almost, but we'll see. We still have a little bit of solder to remove. I'm going to clean my iron and try to remove the rest of this as best I can. I'm going to add a little bit more flux here. Man, this would be so much easier if this board was flat. Now let's see if we can pop it out. Going to stick my tweezers underneath here, and it does not want to budge. So I'm just going to heat up both prongs on both sides as I'm removing it. Boom. Okay, that was a lot harder than it needed to be, but not nearly as hard as some of these other mods we've done. I'm gonna put my iron down for a moment and we can get out our new board, which I'm going to start with the smaller connectors because I think that will be a little bit easier to manage. And also I need to let this thing cool down because I have learned my lesson a couple of times. But honestly, I'm just going to skip through a lot of this since we just did all the desoldering. We can see the fan connections here. So we're going to flip this board over and there's going to be all of our obvious spots here. At least it seems pretty obvious to me. Our 3-pin fan header, we can slot in like that. Our 2-pin smaller connector here is the other fan header, which we can slot in like that. And then we can slot our last connector in like that. So I think, yeah, that makes the most sense. All of that does seem like it's going to spill out though. So what I'm going to do, actually, they're still looser than I'd like to be. I'm going to take them out and start with the middle one since it's the shortest. And we are going to just hold it down like that and then solder those 2 posts. And then we'll get the next shortest one, which will be this one. Solder those 2 pins in and then solder the last 3 pins in here. All doing the same thing, keeping it flat, pressed down, and using, of course, some flux to make life a bit easier. I'm gonna clean my iron off since we just got done desoldering. We don't want to get any of the gross old solder on there. I am going to add a bit to my tip here, and then I'm going to push down on the board and then just tack that down. And then since it's tacked down, we can add solder and then we can go back and fully finish off the solder on this pin. And for some reason, that's like slightly crooked on here, but I don't think it'll matter too much. Then we can do the next connector. This is the next tallest connector. And again, some flux. Then we can tack it down. And then we can add some solder to this one. And then we'll go back to that in a second because I don't know why it's being the way it is. And then we'll do this one again. Boom, good enough. And then the 3-prong, which goes in like that. And add a little bit more solder to my tip there. And again, flux. And while pressing flat, and tack that one down, which we'll definitely need to resolder there. And we'll start with the far one. Come on, not my best solder job. Next one's better for sure. And then we'll just clean that one up. And I've done better, but all those will just get the job done. So I don't really care. Now I'm going to set my iron down again real quick. And then we are going to reinsert the power switch. It will go in like this, but I want to make sure we have the orientation right. I don't want to accidentally put it in wrong. I'm also going to bend this post bit back again because I bent it a little too far. And according to this picture, he has the 2 holes here facing all of the connectors. So that's the way we will do it. We need to remove some solder from this pin because it is not wanting to cooperate. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of flux on the wick this time, since it's kind of a small area here. And even though there is flux built into this solder wick, we kind of used it over here. And I just want to use the end to hopefully clean that up a little bit. And I think that was that simple. Again, these 2 holes facing the connectors, they're not really holes, they're black dots. And then we can go back to this funky angle and put a lot of flux down. Get this pin soldered down, this pin soldered down. Then we can worry about all of this sucker. And then the last pin. That's not good. We're bridging. So we'll just fix that real quick just by kind of putting the iron all around it. And yeah, that looks good enough. The Simmons family motto. Now I will clean off my iron, turn it off, unplug it, put it away. We're done soldering. Even though it is no clean flux, I'm just gonna go ahead and clean this up real quick. And I'm realizing I don't have a paper towel out, and I'll spray this one more time so I can drop some of the flux remover down. It'll go to work, and then I'll spray again, and then I'll put this over the top and try and mop up as much of that as we can. That did a really good job. So I will spray alcohol again, and then just now with all that flux cleaned up, we can see a little bit easier if we made any bridge connections. It all looks good. It's a little close there, but I think we'll be fine. Go ahead and heat up my mat real quick, because I don't really want the leftover flux on the mat. Just deep clean this mat. We'll zoom out again, bring our GameCube back over, and then we can put our connectors in. Power connector and fan connector, right? It's a little bit twisted, but it should still work. Cool. And then we should be able to just drop it in like that. Where did our screw go? Pop that in. Whoa. And screw it down. And then we can pop our 3D printed cover on there, just like that. And it's going to be hard to see because it's black. But I like that it says power delivery and the voltage that's needed. I do wish that it said the amount of amps you need, because not every brick can do 3 amps. Either way, that's really it. We can just slot this back on, and that should, yep, that lines up perfectly. And then we can go ahead and pop that open, slot this on, and you need to click this into place. Whoa, hello. The paint definitely makes it harder to open and close this. And now my power button's stuck. Okay. Is it because of the mod? Oh my God. Really? Why would this affect this button? Hold on. I'm gonna remove the 3D printed jack for a second, just to see if I can wiggle this board a little bit more, so that it likes my button a little bit more. Okay, button's working. Oh, interesting. So it was literally the 3D printed jig. I guess it pushes it too far back for my console to like it. I'll try it one more time, because I would prefer to have this than to not have it. Okay. So it was literally just that Maybe I didn't fully seat the 3D print properly there. Okay, I guess you gotta be wary of that, of all things. Okay, so now that I've got a bunch of paint dust all over my hands, did not do a good job of painting this, I will go ahead and put these 4 screws in, and the button is still properly working. Cool. Now I can put this in. Let's go test this out. I gotta grab my power delivery brick though. Assuming this works, I'll be able to play my GameCube with just a simple HDMI, and it upscales and looks great, and USB-C for power. So here we go. This light should turn white when I press this in. Boom. And we're spinning. In case you're not believing me, we're good. Well, it was spinning. It doesn't spin when I have this. Look at that. But that's it. It's that simple. I'm too lazy to plug it into the TV. I know it works. I wouldn't post this video if it didn't. But I just want to address why I'm doing this, because since I posted the N64 short to the main channel, I have gotten a lot of people saying it's dumb. And I can understand from the outside looking in, not knowing the background, it may not make the most sense. But the reason why I want to get rid of the proprietary ports like this or the N64 cable, which is like a whole power supply. These are both powered by external power supplies. And yes, you could argue that you still kind of have a proprietary power supply. This is still an external power supply that you need to carry around, but this is already my travel brick that works. So if I want to take this on the go, because technically it's a portable console with a handle, all I need is a simple C to C cable or C to A cable and a brick that can run 12 volts at 3 amps, which this does. And I have another brick that has multiple USB-C ports that runs at even higher voltages and amps that just sits behind my TV, and it can power my GameCube and hopefully eventually my Wii U, which I say hopefully, as long as I don't break it when I install it. I have the USB-C mod for the Wii U. Both of those will be powered with USB-C and have basic HDMI, because my TV out there only has HDMI ports. And if I ever want to throw my N64 on the main setup, I just have to grab it, unplug my USB-C from my GameCube, and unplug my HDMI from the GameCube and plug it into my N64, because that now also has USB-C for power and an HDMI mod in it. And I'm staring at a couple other consoles down here that I will be able to do the same freaking thing to right now, if not very soon. So that's why I'm doing it. So I don't have to have 40 consoles on my main TV. I can just have like 5 or 6, the mainstays that I use the most frequently. And then I can sub out different consoles that have the same power and HDMI ports very easily without having to store all the proprietary cables that are necessary to power them. I can store those at my parents' house and not take up precious space in my apartment, even though I don't really have a need to have all those proprietary ports now that I'm replacing them with USB-C. Anyways, that's why I'm doing this. Now it should make a little bit more sense to you, but no, you don't need to do this to your GameCube. Most people probably don't need to, but it's kind of nice, especially because in the future, when the power supply dies for my GameCube and maybe they're not making them still in the aftermarket, it'll be easier to come across a tiny little brick like this and USB-C to C cable. At least I would hope so. Anyways, that's it.